魔界のハンバーガーもなかなかうめえな。何の肉かなこれ。
聞かない方がいい。
Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Anime with Alvin, where today we're going to be making the Demon Realm Burger from Dragon Ball Z Daima. So over here we have a selection of meats that I thought might be more fitting to the Demon Realm versus just plain beef. We have lamb shoulder, have some whole beef tongue, some rump roast, and some pork belly. These all seem like pretty gamey and fatty meats that you might find in a place where it's ridden with lots of demons and other animals. And so I thought it'd be fun to see if we can turn this into a burger that actually tastes really good. The first things first to deal with beef tongue. Now, this is my first time actually preparing beef tongue. Beef tongue is a very fatty, well-marbled, but tough cut to manage, both inside and outside. There's a whole connective tissue and membrane that needs to be peeled, which sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get it off in one piece, and sometimes people boil it before peeling it off. But because this tongue needs to be seared and cooked later, I'm thinking that we just need to trim the silver skin off. Now, this definitely took some time. I probably could have done a better job, but it's important to make sure that all those tongue-looking parts that make it look like a tongue are all not there anymore at the end. Okay, we're gonna set this aside and use this to sort of emulate those two red flap-looking things Goku had in his burger. For the patty meat itself, we're gonna cut about a pound of each of the other meats. The pork belly, the lamb shoulder, the rump roast. And I think with that combination, we're both gonna get a good mix of gaminess, fattiness, and hopefully a lot of flavor in our burger that doesn't taste the same as a typical ground beef burger you make by yourself. After thinking about the ratios a bit more, I ended up cutting a pound of the beef rump, a pound of the lamb shoulder, and only a half pound of the pork belly since it's fatty. That's going to go on a tray lined with parchment paper and sent to freeze in the freezer until they're nice and hard. And once the meat is all frozen, that's going to come out and go into a food processor, which I think is my preferred and superior home method of making ground meat. Just blitz this on high until you get the texture you want. If you want it chunkier, blitz it less. If you want it more akin to a sausage patty or a really emulsified meat, just keep going. You can't really hurt it too much, even though it's rock hard. After blending all this meat mixture and tossing that into a bowl to make sure all the fat is evenly incorporated throughout the meat, took a smell, and even though this is really cold, I noticed a pretty strong gamey smell. It was really funky and wasn't very pleasant, which makes sense. There's a lot of lamb fat, pork, a lot of strong flavors in here that we intentionally went for. And to counteract this, I looked into some spices that we could hopefully use to kind of mask that flavor. I decided to add 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 2 teaspoons of mustard powder, 2 teaspoons of white pepper, and 2 teaspoons of onion powder. Usually my favorite spices to add to food to spice them up or give it a little something that it needs to kind of make it delicious. After mixing it and smell it, it just simply smells good. There's no funky or gamey flavor at all, which kind of makes me think about the old days where people had to deal with these kinds of meats and discovered that these spices could, well, in fact, be used to mask those intense flavors. Pretty cool. So now that I'm pretty happy with this meat mixture, I'm going to shape them into 5 very, very, very large patty balls. 1, these have a lot of fat, so I'm assuming a lot of it's going to shrink once it hits the pan. And 2, these burgers are single patty, which I think is going to make them a little bit bigger on the patty ball size. So those are going to hang out and come to room temperature while we make something else. Now, for the burger bun, it's clear in the show that these are black burger buns. I'm not exactly sure where they're getting their dark pigment from, but usually people turn to squid ink for this kind of recipe. But I think going the route of activated charcoal, or more interpreting this as the ashes of the demon's enemies, might be a better fit. So that is exactly what we got. We went outside, did some hunting, and this is the kind of thing where it's better not to ask too many questions. For the burger bun base recipe itself, I still really love Brian Lagerstrom's burger bun, so that's exactly what we're gonna make in a stand mixer. 250 grams of warm water, 100 grams of sugar, 1 egg, 75 grams of melted butter, 8 grams of yeast that has been bloomed in some water, and then about 3 tablespoons of our activated charcoal, which you can either use in powder form, or in this case, Tony actually had some of those in pill form for traveling, and he graciously brought us his canister, to which we had to take the powder out of their capsules, which may look like a different kind of a show, so we decided not to show that. But this powder was definitely legally obtained, And once that goes in, my favorite part is the 150 grams of riced baked potato, which we just microwave because you just kind of want that squishy inside. And then for flour, we got 625 grams of all-purpose and then 2 teaspoons of salt. The best part is you can throw it all in a stand mixer and just mix it all together. There's no stages. And this kind of just needs to go for about 15 minutes or so. Kind of realized that the activated charcoal does absorb a good amount of liquid from the dough. So we compensated by adding just a little bit more water by eye. I don't know exactly how much you need to add. It depends on what kind of charcoal you use and how much you use. But I would say this is the kind of thing where if it feels a little too dry, it's a little bit safer for this dough to go a little on the wetter side, as we'll be kneading it for a longer time. After about 15 to 20 minutes or so, I'm going to take this dough out and place this in a oiled bowl, and using one wet hand, kind of pulling one of the edges and slapping it back on the opposite side to almost tuck it from the top. Once we've done that all around, we're going to turn that over and let that proof covered for about an hour until it is roughly increased by 70% or maybe even doubled. After about an hour, I'm going to punch this down, separate this into 5 burger buns, and proof this for about another hour on a tray. Based on the temperature of however you're proofing it, you might need to proof it once or proof it twice. But to be honest, we were a little bit in a rush today, so I decided how it would go with only just one proof before we proofed it on the tray the second time. Then these go into an oven for about 20 minutes. I also love red wine sauces with heavy meats, so I thought it would be very fitting to make this in the theme of calling this demon's blood. We also happen to have a half-open bottle of red wine that I thought we could just use up. So in goes that. It was about 2 cups worth. Once that reduces by half, I'm going to add 2 cups of beef or chicken stock. Once that reduces by half, I'm going to make this kind of reverse roux. I take 2 tablespoons of butter at room temperature and mash that with 2 tablespoons of flour until it is nice and uniform and pasty. And once the sauce in our pan is nice and hot and at a high roiling boil, I throw in this butter paste and kind of whisk that very vigorously until it is thickened up nice and smooth. The flour helps prevent the butter from kind of splitting in the sauce, kind of making sure that everything is emulsified, and the high heat makes sure that the flour is cooked through. It's kind of like a reverse roux. And to season, depending on how salty your stock was, you can add salt. This can also be done at the very end. I also like to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I think that balances really well with acidity of the wine, because usually if you're cooking down wine and reducing it, it tends to get a little bit more sour. Okay, and to finish this sauce, I'm taking this off the heat and adding in about 8 tablespoons of cold butter. Yes, it is a lot of butter. It is a French-inspired sauce, and to be honest, that's what makes this taste so good. Plus, it also does the really good job of cooling the sauce down while whisking heavily. So you have really cold butter in a hot sauce, and because it's already emulsified, if you whisk constantly, it'll bring down the temperature, make it really silky, and add a really, really delicious finish that kind of counteracts that wine intensity. Okay, this is our finished demon's blood sauce. Very delicious, can honestly go with anything. Bread, meats, vegetables. It's one of those sauces where sometimes if you let someone else taste it, they're going to not give it back. Now let's move on to the beef tongue we had prepared earlier. So because it is peeled, I'm going to go ahead and slice that into long flat strips as much as I can to kind of emulate those red flappy things inside Goku's burger that he was eating. Because these are still pretty gamey, this is a technique lifted from Chinese cuisine techniques where you kind of quick marinate a meat with a splash of cooking wine. I went a little bit heavier because I wasn't sure how intense the beef tongue was going to be, plus some salt just to 1, get rid of its gaminess, and 2, provide it a little bit of moisture and seasoning before going into a hot pan. I'm just simply searing the tongue, letting it keep its natural flavor in a pan with just a little bit of oil, trying to cook that to a nice medium. And once both sides are seared pretty well, that's going to just go off to the side and rest. And while I was thinking about it, maybe beef tongue is a luxury kind of meat cut that you might not be able to find, because it is relatively expensive. But what else is a questionable mixture of meat that has a high fat content and tastes really good and looks like a beef tongue? Spam. Spam looks like that tongue. So I'm going to take a whole block of spam and cut it into nice slices, and the nice tapered round edges on the side definitely give the impression that this could also be the tongue of the burger. And it is also made of questionable ingredients and meats that honestly, another case of if you don't want to know the answer, don't ask. But spam also sears up really nicely and maintains a beautiful pink color. So we'll have that and test that out on a second burger. After that's all seared, we're gonna go ahead and cook the patties themselves. We're gonna take up 1 patty, squish it down with some parchment. Oh, caught a little bit on fire there. Must have been the dragon sleeping in the back. Must have woke it up a little bit. Let's go ahead and season this a little bit more. Get a good sear on it. flip it, add 2 slices of cheese, obviously has to be American. Really no other cheese for burgers. I'm not sure if they have Kraft singles in the Demon Realm, but I'm gonna go ahead and say we're gonna take that liberty. I'm gonna take the patty off, drain this on a rag to get rid of any excess fat, and then repeat that with a second patty. Okay, here are the black buns that we have made, fresh out of the oven and rested to where they are nice and handleable. I don't even know if that's a word. I'm gonna slice these buns. These are on the larger side and quite squishy, but still have good structure. And honestly, for this style of bun, I actually prefer not toasting it because I think this style of bun is very good at absorbing burger juices and kind of meshing with the patty and everything inside to give you that squishy, craveable burger texture that I think we all can relate to. So first I'm gonna start with one has beef tongue slices. We're gonna have 2 large slices, kind of pointing out to emulate the tongue look. And on the other one, I'm gonna take 2 slices of our seared Spam and place that accordingly. Then we're gonna top that with a spoonful of our demon blood. Not too much, I don't want this to get too soggy. 1 nicely seared, thick, juicy, questionable meat patty with our 2 slices of American cheese on top. And then the top bun on each. And I present to you 2 versions of our Demon Realm burger from Dragon Ball Z Daima. The patty itself is made with lamb shoulder, beef rump, and pork belly, in addition to the black bun also being part of it. And this one has beef tongue as its signature look that kind of separates it. And this is our second version. Instead of beef tongue, we used sliced seared Spam. Visually, and in my mind, I think the Spam one should turn out well, but we'll see. And you know what, we have a lot of extra demon blood, so let's just put some more sauce on it and see the nice textures of the sauce run over the cheese like that. Okay, let's go ahead and give this a cross section and a taste test. Let's start with the Spam one first. This is a delicious burger. I really like the saltiness of the Spam. It kind of provides a bacon-like effect where it seasons and kind of gives you the flavor of the burger, but still allows you to taste the burger and the meat itself. The combination with the red wine sauce kind of counteracting everything is kind of an oxymoron because it's supposed to provide a light acidity, and yet half of it is probably butter. The gaminess of the patty is muted by the spices, but also enhanced in a way where it is fatty and delicious. It's definitely one of those super indulgent burgers that actually tastes really good with all of it matching together very well. Definitely love the idea of Spam in a burger. And now onto the beef tongue. Now this one still tastes good, but it doesn't really make sense because it just tastes like if you just had a really good burger and someone accidentally slipped a chunk of beef tongue in it, because beef tongue is a well marbled yet somewhat chewy kind of cut. It needs to be eaten in thin slices or on its own, almost like a steak with its own accompaniments. I think if you try to eat that as a topping in a burger, it's almost like when you accidentally bite into your burger and you pull out the whole slice of tomato and you can't chew it and you can't break it. So now you're kind of forced to eat the whole thing and the rest of your burger has no tomato and your first bite has all the tomato. I also don't really like tomatoes, so maybe that's why I thought about that. But I will say, I think the Spam is the best compromise between the two. Now, those red things in the burger could have just been slices of tomato that didn't have animation budget to draw the details of the seeds, so I could be completely taking a wrong direction here, but I thought it'd be fun. After the whole studio got to taste and try out all the burgers, I think we all agreed that the Spam one was the better one, and then someone had the bright idea to get some pickles out the fridge, and that kind of made everything taste so much better. It was the missing piece that we all kind of desperately wanted with the burger to keep eating it, as it was so good, but it was really heavy, and the pickles definitely helped out with that. After packing up the leftover demon blood and the burgers, those leftover patties and buns went to a good home. Yeah, that's Tony. Tony took it home again. Thanks, Tony. All right, that's a pretty heavy day. Time to go take a nap. Hopefully we don't get into any more bar fights.